Elder Infinite Passage album review. Let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning here tonight to chat about this latest album from Elder. These guys are a Massachusetts-based metal act, and they've been at it since the late 2000s. And for the most part, I've been a big fan of what they've put out. Their self-titled debut, I was right up my alley. It was a really great blend of stoner metal, doom metal, some sludge metal as well. And I did enjoy it. I mean, I wasn't absolutely telling all my friends about it, but I thought it was a very solid debut. But if I liked that, I really loved their follow-up, Dead Roots Stirring. This brought in all the elements of their debut, alongside some slight nods to progressive metal, but some exquisite production, just crushing production, and it made for one of my favorite metal albums of the year. And by the time their Lore album came around, their sound was even more in the progressive direction, which is something that I usually hate. But I thought they were bringing some fresh ideas to the table. Not only that, but I could not say no to the band's attention to detail and their willingness to push themselves. But I thought it was 2017's Reflections of a Floating World that really showed the band at their artistic peak, and they really did the impossible. They brought class, exquisite songwriting, thought-provoking ideas, and just fantastic performances to the barren wasteland that is modern prog metal. I mean, I think it's a masterpiece and a must listen. But I do feel like with their last album, Omens, I felt like the band bit off a little bit more than they can chew. I mean, the album has some really great moments, like Halcyon, the track rips. But overall, the band quickly went from being just a really great example of what modern prog can be to the textbook reason that I really avoid the genre at all costs, usually. Thankfully, though, I thought that the single that they dropped leading up to this new album had some meat on its bones, some thought-provoking ideas, and I think that overall, this is a step in the right direction. This album starts off with Catastasis, and honestly, it is a very cool intro. I love the drama here, the pacing, the seriously intense performances once this track gets rolling. But it has something that their last album, Omens, was missing so much, and that is a sense of grandiosity, this sense of a larger-than-life happening between the crashing riff and the swirling, very whimsical synths on this track. This just is a really great example of modern prog metal, and it's not as suffocating as it was on their last album. There's a real bite to this track, a real edge that I actually really enjoy. The songwriting is fantastic too. It's just catchy enough to stick with you. It's just a really great example of Elder's sound. And on top of that, the much more whimsical final few minutes is performed really well as well. It feels really complete. It feels like a solid journey, and it really does do well in its 11-minute mark. Endless Return, it's given me hope since I first heard it as a single. It is a little bit more in the progressive rock direction, but I don't think that's a slight. I think it's done really classy. It's got a shocking amount of heart to it. It's got some real emotion. It's got some meat on its bones. It's not just heady solo after heady solo, so much so that when a good solid solo does roll around on this track, and they do, trust me, it's genuinely exciting. I mean, I do miss some of the sludgier and stoner metal elements of their early releases, but that's because I love those genres so much. But they do this sound a lot of justice, and I think it's a great single. And Merged in Dreams, Innate Plus Ultra, I mean, I saw this track coming from a mile away. I saw the 16-minute runtime on this thing, and I almost wanted to run for the hills. But I really enjoy the pacing on this track, the way it really works up to where it's going. And as far as some genuinely cosmic and out there ideas on this album, you're not going to find much more thorough ones than this. It's done so well, the pacing here, that when the crashing riff comes rolling in and the solos start, taking up so much of this track, it's once again really exciting. And I do mean that about the solos, because they are expansive, they are drawn out, they take out a bulk of this track, but they come off really crisp, really, technically proficient, and once again, exciting and well done. I mean, this track is a journey. It is long, but it is one that I really want to listen to again. Not only that, but the final few instrumental minutes are really beautiful. Elder do a very good job on this album of kind of getting themselves back on track. My only issue with this album, and with a lot of progressive rock and progressive metal albums, is when you're giving me an album with 5 tracks, and 3 of them are really great, and 2 of them are really bad, it just makes things really hard to really grade at the end of the day. The progressive metal and progressive rock genre is a slippery slope. Take, for example, Coalescence. This is to a T the progressive metal of these days that we're living in, that I can't stomach it. And yes, I commend the driving, very intense riff that we get here. That's cool. But instantly, I feel like they are trying to cram so much into this track. It's so jam-packed with ideas, including some very cosmic synths and some really breathtaking strings, but none of it really stands out. And by the time this track's halfway mark rolls around, I'm bored. This track is just very limp. It's so flimsy sounding despite everything going on. And from a songwriting stance, if you took a long list of every cliche in modern progressive rock and progressive metal and listed them out, you would get them all on this track. And the purpose is, it's ugly. The twinkling riffs, the synths just floating through the background, it's not for me. This track takes forever to get going, and once it does pick up, it's so sluggish. And not in a cool sludge metal or doom metal sort of way either. It's just exhausted. I'm exhausted just listening to this track, and it really kind of brings me down on this album, sadly. And by the end of this 9-minute track, it's just a mishmash of every cliche that I hate in modern prog metal and prog rock. This album is hard to grade. Like I said, when you're giving us an album that's 5 tracks long and 54 minutes, and 2 of them are pretty rough to listen to, taking up almost half of this album, it's really tough to grade this album. It's really tough to give it a proper rating. I'm going to give it a light 7, though, because I think that a good hunk of this album is Elder really thunderously getting back on track, and that makes me happy. It's just a slippery slope. And you may agree with that or you may disagree with that. But let me know what you all think down below. If you like the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.